One of the things that still is like budget friendly is on the side of like text messaging, right? So I think a lot of people don't realize you can get a lot of deals from texting, and it's probably, I mean, if I text you right now, you're probably gonna look at it, right? Versus an email, you might have your emails notifications off, right? At least I do, and I know a lot of people are very similar to that. So the stats on texting are just tremendous. So I think that's one of the places most people should go to.
You're listening to the AZREIA Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from AZREIA, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the AZREIA Show. I'm your host, Marcus Maloney, and we have our executive director and co-host, Mike Prete.
Hello, hello.
All right, so if you guys are watching this on YouTube, we're doing a little something different here in the studio. We like it. It's bright, airy.
It's bright, yeah.
It's making it work. But today we have Kyle Allen with the Hoffer Group and Basil Holdings. We're going to be talking about acquisitions. We're going to be talking about wholesaling and rental property also. But the main thing is, kind of the shift in the market and how Kyle is still able to find deals during the shift in the market and what you need to know and how you need to present your offer to buyers and sellers to make sure your deal works for everyone. So Kyle, man, how you doing today?
Doing good. I appreciate you guys for both having us on. I really appreciate, the opportunity to get on here and share a little bit about my story and, kind of what's working for us right now in the market.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So what's cooking, man? What do you got going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, mostly our firm has kind of switched mostly to wholesaling. We were doing a lot of buy and hold, keeping a lot of apartment complexes and flipping over the last 2 years previously. And then obviously things started changing in the market, interest rates. We got hurt on some fix and flips. So we really just started dialing back up that wholesale side and scaling that side of the business out over the last probably about 18 months or so, which has been really great because it gives us a lot of opportunities to give amazing individuals on our team opportunities to go sell these deals, lock them up, go make good commissions so that way they can go jump into deals with us in the future too.
Oh, great.
So, which is always one of those things you want people to keep thriving around you. So the more that they can thrive, the more that we're going to thrive too. So I think that's always a great opportunity.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely been really focused on wholesale recently. So.
Perfect. So tell us, man, how did you get started? What did you do pre-real estate, and then how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I got really lucky. So I was looking for a job at 16, just got a car and was trying to figure out what to do. And one of my friends, Tammy Gray, she works at Fidelity Title. And I don't know if you guys know who Tammy is, but she's an account rep over there. And she's like, hey, Kyle, there's this company called Open House Helpers. You should go, chat with them. Her son, Reed, at the time was working there. And then my other buddy, Max, was too. So I was like, oh, perfect. Reed and Max are already doing this. Sounds like pretty easy gig. They want me to go put out open house signs. So I started doing that. And then I ended up meeting someone on Doug Hopkins' team. His name was Adam. And then I started basically working for Doug Hopkins, passing out flyers at 16 years old. Just go, he'd buy a house in XYZ neighborhood. Yeah. Give me a big bucket, go pass them around every house. Yep.
Cool,
and go find someone that can do it. I had a unique little number at the bottom that was traced back to me. Yeah. So I get paid per flyer, then also a little bonus if anyone called in and wanted to sell their house and they bought the house or sold the house, whatever it was.
Wow. So
yeah.
that obviously Doug's very popular and well known around the valley. So what's something you learned from working around Doug?
Yeah. So obviously I didn't have amazing access at 16. So
But you're in the environment, right?
Yeah, I was in the environment. So one of the things that I had the audacity to ask him one time was how much money he made.
All right.
Very crazy.
I don't know you
question.
that well.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
the guy over here, but how much?
Yeah, but I kept seeing him on TV, so it's obviously this guy has to be doing well. I just wasn't thinking, and I say some stupid stuff sometimes, and that was one of those stupid things. And long story short, the number kind of blew me away, and I was like, this is more money than I've ever heard anyone else say. So this seems like a good thing that I should probably follow and do.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So that was one of the things that I really learned. And also too, I then reconnected with him a couple years later in a mastermind called Collective Genius. At the time I was working for a guy down in Tucson named Michael Rhodes. And I learned a lot more from Mike than I did from Doug because I was a lot more closer in proximity. about like the whole investing business and all that good stuff. Because at the time, I didn't really understand what wholesaling was at 16 still.
Yeah.
It kind of just was one of those things. I really just thought he was buying all these houses cash.
Yeah.
And flipping them or keeping as rentals. Like I had no idea that he was wholesaling at that time. Didn't even know what that was.
So Tucson, you moved down there or school?
Yeah,
or
went for school. So like most kids, I was like, oh, the next route is to go to U of A and go to college and get a 4-year degree. So I went to go get my marketing degree from the Eller College of Management, and I was going down there and kind of just didn't really feel like that was the right path. So, you know, I decided to start that open house sign company up for myself. I tried to partner with the people that were up here, and I offered them, you know, I was like, hey, you know, because I was one of their best employees at the time, you know, they needed something done on it.
Right.
And so I went to them. I was like, hey, Mike, I'm going to go down to school down in U of A. I'm going to be down there for 4 years. Why don't we start this? You guys aren't doing anything down in Tucson.
Right.
I'll be the lead. I'll do all the stuff, but I want equity in the deal. I don't want to just be an employee.
Yeah.
They basically laughed me off and said no. And so right there and then I decided to start my own business because I thought it was going to be really simple. So it wasn't simple. And so I started with $5,000. I invested all of that from work in the summers and after school and stuff like that. I invested every dollar into buying all these signs, which was really stupid. Should have spent way more money on marketing than the signs. So going back would change that. But that kind of started giving me proximity, and I bought all these signs. I had them literally stacked up in my college apartment at that time, literally up here. My girlfriend was like, hey, like, what are all these things? And I'm like, there's signs. I'm starting this business. I was like, and she was like, you're nuts. Like, you're stupid. Like, you're going to fail. My parents weren't really on board at that time. They're like, it's a crazy idea, but sure, if you think you're
what do you have to say about that?
That's
a lot of people, whether it's business or real estate, doesn't matter. You got those friends and family. They're like, you're crazy. Just go to school, do your homework. Like,
just be a normal kid for once. Yeah. It was a little bit tough for a little bit because I didn't really feel like I had anyone in my corner. But I think not having anyone in my corner made me want to prove it even more.
Okay.
So I gave my dad a call because I was running out of money. And I was like, hey, like, I don't think I have enough to like buy groceries. And
I got a lot of signs.
Exactly. I got a lot of signs. I got a lot of inventory that I got to move stuff. And he goes, well, go sell something then.
There you go.
And so instead of enabling me and just being like, oh, here's a couple $100, go feed yourself, right? Like, don't want you to starve. He basically told me, go out and go start door knocking. So what I did is I got in my car with the gas I had, and I started driving around to brokerage, which I met Michael Rhodes at that time. And he saw something in me. Didn't know really what, because I didn't really have much to offer, but some hustle at that time.
That's the most important thing.
And so I got basically him to buy, I think at that time it was 2 open house packages every other week. Oh. So it was like not bad, but not great. And also too, I had to wait for the money to come too. He didn't pay it in advance, which I was trying to do because I was like, I really need money. So
That's right.
Clean up the deal if you pay me now.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I'll take some money off, right? So so that kind of opened up a door in a relationship because he was flipping all these houses and doing this. So obviously you want to spend money to get them sold. So the best way to do that was driving traffic, open houses, spending these agents, and also getting these agents to show up to the open houses and not have to do anything. So I started doing that, opened me up to some other avenues because I realized knocking door to door to each brokerage was really time consuming. So I decided to switch my approach. I started using a lot of digital marketing aspects like that to basically find realtors and investors, people that were looking to do business and trying to do some marketing.
So how did all this roll into real estate? Let's get into so you're working with a real estate investor.
Yeah, working with him. Yeah.
So did you start doing deals with him or?
Yeah. So I started helping him to wholesale houses. Okay. So eventually that relationship built out to where I was helping to run all the marketing. And then I basically ran his dispo list. So at that time, they basically were mostly just a fix and flip company. They weren't really wholesaling any houses. And if they did, it was kind of like one-off, like, hey, you're my friend, Marcus. I'll sell the deal to you. You know what I mean? Right. It wasn't like marketing to it. Like you would reach out to him and be like, hey, do you have anything? You'd be like, I really want to keep this one, but for you, I'll sell it. So we built out a whole dispo list for him.
So you built that. So, okay. So you built out the dispo list. He's the main investor. He's going to buy it
if it didn't sell, he was just going to buy it anyways. So great person to have because every deal did
work.
Yeah. Right. So every deal worked. And then also too, it opened them up to an avenue of shorter cash cycles, right? Which is really important in that business, even though he had a ton of money and stuff like that. I could shorten my time frame and also make maybe a little bit more than what I would have if I would have taken all the time and energy to flip this house.
Gotcha.
So, because he had a whole inside construction team, like it was really built out very well.
He had a lot of exposure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of exposure. I literally was in his office like next to him on a desk.
Yeah.
So I got to see everything from how he was bidding at the auction to how he's underwriting properties. Because at that time, the auction was still a little bit full. It wasn't obviously like it was back in 2008 and 9, which is where he did a lot of his business at. But yeah, I got to see all of that. I got to see how he managed a sales floor, a sales team. He had his own brokerage at that time too. So that was kind of like my first exposure to like wholesaling, was helping him to just dispo out these and basically get them out to investors, build that list up, qualify people. And then eventually I was like, I think I could do this myself. So then went out and started doing it myself.
What was one quality you saw in him that you wanted to emulate or mimic for you to be successful?
He was really passionate about what he did. Like, he cared a lot about like what he did and all that stuff. Like, it didn't matter if the house made like very little money or was like the best deal in the world and you could go make $1 million on it. Like, he cared about every deal. And I felt like that passion like came through. And I also felt like one of the other qualities that I really liked about him was he always wanted everyone to win. Even though he was very like aggressive and like very like kind of like pushing, he still wanted everyone to win. And that was one of the things that I thought was interesting, because even when you're at that level, you're thinking, well, like, he could probably go way faster with just probably doing these things himself. But I realized how important a team was to him. And if he didn't have that team, him by himself obviously was nothing.
Right.
So even though he has all the resources and stuff like that, it still would be hard without the team.
Of course. So I like that perspective. Good question. And the other side of it is the apprentice style, working underneath someone. You don't see that offered a lot, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm glad that you did that. It beats the learning curve. Like, we all had mentors in some way. So if you're new to any part of real estate, go work for someone, man. The two people you worked for, the experience you got, that's why you're so successful now. It's like part of it.
Oh, big time. I 100%.
Go work for someone.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for that, especially because he put me in the same room with him, he could have just put me in a different room and just was like, hey, just do this. And like, I could have clocked in like that. But I kept asking really good questions to him and trying to pick his brain and trying to understand stuff, because that's like the big thing. He was very open about sharing things and talking about what was working and what was not, and different marketing pieces that we could implement that would work, or things that he would think about as an investor that he would like to see if he was getting pitched a deal.
That's one of the biggest mistakes that newer investors or inspiring investors do, is they're afraid to ask those questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
You was sitting right there in the room with him and it was like, hey, how did you come up with this ARV, or why did you decide to put this number with this property? It's always good to ask those questions, even if they may seem like dumb questions to you.
Yeah.
It's always good to ask those questions. So, man, kudos to you for really doing that, because not everybody's willing to do that, because you have to have a level of humility and have to have a level of...
Just make it up.
Yeah,
just make up the word, Market.
No, I'm not making up the word. I'm trying to think of the word.
Yeah, I definitely did ask a lot of dumb questions, though. That's for sure. And just went out there and just was like, hey, I think this might work. Putting it into a position like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I want your opinion.
So what was so now you got all this experience. You're working under someone. So how old were you when you got your first deal? And tell us about that.
Yeah.
First deal.
So the first deal was down in Tucson.
Okay.
I was with this guy, Bob was his name, Robert, but Bob for short. He's actually a little fighter. You could look him up online. I'd have to find what his last name was again. But I looked him up, and back in like the 40s and 50s or something like that, he was like a boxer. Something went crazy.
Oh, okay.
So he had this rental property. I was basically cold calling a list for 4 months straight.
Okay.
And just kept cold calling. I was like, I know this works. You know what I mean? Like, they were obviously getting deals. Like, I know I can find a deal.
Right.
So just kept cold calling, kept trying to figure out, how do I find a deal? And so finally this guy calls me back and he's like, hey, I'm interested in selling. I'm like, perfect. Let's do the deal. I talked to him about numbers. He's like, yeah, that number seems in line with what I want. It was tenant occupied too. So I obviously didn't get access to the property. So it's kind of just going off of a limb of like, I think it just needs a full gut. You know what I mean? House definitely needed more than that when I walked inside of it. So I ended up basically locking that up. But at first, what he ended up doing was taking a different offer from another wholesaler. And then he gave me a call back, and because that wholesaler canceled.
Okay.
So I kept following up with him because I knew that those things kind of happen just based off being in the industry. Like, not every deal just ends up penciling and working, or for whatever reason, finances don't line up or something like that. So I kept just following up with this guy, and then he finally calls me back. He's like, hey, they fell out. Are you still interested with that offer that you made? I go, yes. So I ended up meeting him at Village Inn, sitting across from him. At that time, I think I was, 19 or 20 years old.
Okay.
And I'm sitting across from him, and I'm sweating bullets. He's like, hey, I'm going to bring my brother-in-law, who's an attorney. He's gonna
Yes,
look over
yeah,
the
yeah.
contract with us. And I'm like,
I downloaded it off the internet.
yeah, exactly.
Right, right.
Luckily, it was a contract that I already had. It was the biggest part I was so worried about was the and/or signing part.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
That was the whole part that was like my heart was beating.
Right, right.
I was like, this guy's an attorney. He's gonna know. It's like
Uh-huh.
they didn't bring it up during once in the whole conversation. The only thing they really wondered was where I was getting the money from, because they were skeptical. They're like,
You're young.
you're
Yeah,
young.
yeah.
Where are you going to get the money from? So I told them where the money was coming from, all that good stuff,
Well, what did you
sent them
say?
over. At that time, I had obviously some good connections of some people. I didn't have to come up with that much money either. It was like $190,000 purchase price, if I remember correctly. So I just told them, I was like, hey, I have these other investors. They give me the money. We split the deal in half. And like, that's kind of how we work. So
That's good.
I gave them some credibility based off of the guys that I worked with. And then later that night, I was like, I'm going to send you guys over a proof of funds with a bank account that has the money inside of it. And you guys will see where the money's coming from.
Well, that's
So,
key. That's key
yeah.
because that's where that mentorship
Yeah,
part
big time.
comes in,
Yeah.
right? Because you're sitting there. If you didn't have this guy that you can lean on, you'll be like, okay, well, where am I going to get this money from?
Oh,
You know?
100%. That was
Right,
going through my
right.
head the whole time. Like, what if I can't sell this thing? I don't
Exactly.
have the money.
Exactly. But because you had that relationship with him and already kind of knew the numbers, it was just like, oh, okay, well, this is my partner. We're going to JV this deal, do it together. I'll send over proof of funds. So you walked in there, although you were nervous, you were still pretty confident because
yeah.
you knew you had the backing of another investor.
100%. And I knew that it was a good deal because they've also flipped a couple in that same neighborhood too. So I kind of was like using their own
Their
properties
numbers,
as
yeah.
comps, and also what they bought them for to what they sold them for, kind of just given what it was. So it was really nice to be able to like see like what else was selling in that neighborhood. And also too, I was talking to him before, obviously locked it up too. I was like, hey, like, got this deal. I think it'll be perfect for you. What are your numbers on it? Because I trusted him. I wasn't worried that he was going to go call him up and snake me out of the deal or anything like that. So like that was a huge part of having someone to back in and get it all done.
Did you sign at Village Inn?
Yes.
Love
yeah, we
it.
signed at Village Inn. Didn't
Bacon
get
on the
any
side,
yeah.
some bacon and contracts.
No, didn't get anything
No.
to eat other than just a cup of coffee.
Just nervousness.
Yeah, just really nervous, sweaty pits. Walked out of there. I took a picture of it outside of Village Inn. Was like super excited.
That's great.
That deal took a lot longer than what it should have on paper.
What did you make?
I made $12,000 on that
Good,
deal,
there you
which
go.
was funny because that's my favorite number is 12.
So,
So worked out perfectly, worked out like the way it was supposed to. But the only thing that sucked on it was the tenant was a pain in the ass to deal with. So I had tried to even find him rental properties to move into another one. He was there for like 15 years. So like this guy felt bad. He's like, dude, I can't kick this guy out.
Yeah.
You know
It was
what I mean?
home for him.
Yeah, exactly. So we were trying to work on him. He was trying to move up to Phoenix. He was all over the place. He's like, I might stay in Tucson. I might go up to Phoenix. So I'm like having him like sending him rentals every day. I'm like, hey, what about this one? What about this one? It needs an RV gate. His budget was unrealistic as most renters are, right? I need an RV gate, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths for like under like $1,500. I'm like, where are you finding this house, man? I can't even find a mobile home right
You're gonna
around
be
that.
in Eloy
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. I'm like, you okay with here? And he's like, no, I want to be in this part of Phoenix. I'm like, I don't know if we could do that. So long story short, we ended up finding him a spot, getting him out, but it took 4 months to get him a spot.
Wow.
So we just kept extending the close of escrow,
Yep.
keep waiting, all that good stuff. And then eventually it got done. So
you're 19-ish, U of A, freshman, sophomore.
at that time, I was sophomore. Yeah, I'm a
Sophomore
little
in
bit
college.
like behind on age
Good.
cabinet. So.
Okay.
So let's keep moving, man. So let's speed up a little bit.
Yeah, did
So-
that deal at that time, was trying to run kind of like 2 businesses, wholesaling real estate, was building my marketing business still at the same time. So I was kind of wearing 2 hats at once, just trying to keep scaling this business up, right? And trying to figure out what to do. So I started making a lot of TikToks at that time and just started talking about my process and my journey about how I was wholesaling real estate, resonated with some people. And then from that, I started actually hiring people off of my TikTok. I was like, hey, I don't want to sell you a course. I don't want to sell you anything. Why don't you come work for me? And I'll kind of be that apprentice model for you, even though I'm not that much further ahead.
Right.
I have a little bit more than you have, and I'll teach you everything I know.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
great.
started doing that. Hired a couple guys online that were all virtually working for me, from Pennsylvania to Chicago to like, parts of like Florida. Just we'd hop on Zoom, we'd chat about deals that we were working on. We'd be cold calling sellers. We'd have them, one be dispo, one be acquisitions, kind of just switch off and kind of, have them focus on that. So we started doing deals in kind of like these weird places, just JVing deals.
So you're virtually wholesaling around the country.
Yeah. So just doing a deal in Ohio, if I could do a deal, like I was telling you, in like Alton, Illinois, which is just right above St. Louis. And we did some deals in St. Louis. We did some deals out in Tampa, Florida. And I just started kind of building like this buyer's list kind of in random places, and kind of was just getting stretched thin. And I talked to a buddy of mine, and he was like, dude, like, why are you trying to do like all these deals for like $2,500, $5,000?
Right.
Like, why don't you just like really get really good at like 1 or 2 markets and like just make bigger fees on them? And like for me, that was like kind of like, oh, like sounds great in reality, but like,
Right.
you know, how am I going to do that? You know?
I got a question.
And
So I like the TikTok part of it, right? So was this during COVID or anything?
Yeah,
or?
during COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So like 2020, started really posting a lot of stuff on about just wholesaling real estate.
That's powerful, right? Because there's
Yeah,
so many
definitely.
ways to market yourself with your marketer, right? So when you're talking about because other people are watching you or listening to this, and they're saying they got to get themselves out there, they may not have a budget, so it's like you're on TikTok. So did you like what do I post? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
definitely
like,
had a lot of ideas of what to post.
were you just freestyling it, or were you just did you have a plan?
I mean,
or
the
process?
best. I had a little bit of a plan just based off of like my marketing background and stuff like that. I mean, the biggest thing, you know, if anyone wants to post online, I give away stuff for free. People love free stuff. I mean,
what would you
like,
give away? So you're new
so
to
I
the
gave
business.
away
like,
the
what do you-
contracts.
Okay.
So that was like one of those videos that like kind of just randomly hit. I was just like, what can I give away that's like valuable to people that people would like? So I go in the video, I'm like, hey, here's the 3 contracts you need if you want to wholesale real estate. And I went into depth on each of them, and I just made a link online.
Great.
You literally plug in your name, your phone number, and email, and you get it, and then it takes you to the Google Doc.
And you
that's
call
all I
them. What do
did.
you do there? You just call them. What do you?
Yeah, I just basically just had like text automations that were like, hey, if you have any questions about wholesaling or have a deal, like let's JV or let's do the deal together. You know, very like no soft pitch or like no hard pitch or anything like that. So it's just very like, hey, just here to help.
Love it,
So
man.
that was, and I hop on calls with people for 30 minutes talking about deals that never came to fruition.
Yeah.
You know, people, relationships, things that people were just getting started. They're like, how do I do this? And, you know, I chat with them and just figure out like ways that maybe we could partner together or do something. And that's a lot of where I spent my time at, was just trying to do that, trying to, you know, do that joint venture type of that business. Cause I didn't have the marketing to, you know, do some of the stuff that we're doing now and spending a lot more money on going direct to seller or, you know, having a very big reach with an audience. I just was like, what can I do for free? And TikTok was one of those channels that, you know, kind of came around at the right time for us. So,
Wow.
So you went from free, right, to just getting yourself out there. Now, what are you doing as far as the marketing in order to get deals?
So one of the things that still is like budget friendly is on the side of like text messaging, right? So I think a lot of people don't realize you can get a lot of deals from texting, and it's probably, I mean, if I text you right now, you're probably gonna look at it, right? Versus an email, you might have your emails notifications off, right? At least I do, and I know a lot of people are very similar to that. So the stats on texting are just tremendous. So I think that's one of the places most people should go to. But instead of trying to text whole batch leads or prop stream or whatever and just start texting a bunch of sellers, which you can do and you can get deals that way, another way you can do is just B2B relationships, like talking to agents, talking to other wholesalers, talking to property management companies, talking to lenders. I've gotten deals from notaries. You know what I mean? I've gotten deals from lenders. The rate could go on and on. I've gotten deals from my contractor even. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love
hey,
it.
I had this person come in, all this other stuff. So I think like the more that you can just build B2B relationships, the better off you are.
Business to business.
Yeah,
you're
business
saying.
to business. Sorry. For those that might not be familiar with that term B2B. So instead of going B2C, which is business to consumer, which is what we do still right now, we do like Google ads, Facebook, we run TikTok ads too as well to like sell your house fast for cash.
Yep.
My partner's on the one, that whole kind of like the face of it, similar to like Andrew the Home Buyer or Doug Hopkins and stuff like that.
So before we go that route, like, you know, the whole social media JV concept, you can make a living.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Going B2B, networking, shaking hands, people, your sphere of influence, people in the industry, you can make a living. Like just those two right there, you can get started in wholesaling.
Oh, 100%.
And that's how we met. So you've come around
definitely.
AZREIA, networking, moving, shaking. So it's like, Tell us about your experience, with the networking in the community.
Yeah. So networking is one of the most powerful things. And
Yeah.
I love when people like yourself put on events
Mm-hmm.
because you guys are gathering so many people and connecting so many people. I mean, you guys are providing a lot of goodwill out there in the marketplace, which is always rewarded for.
Thank you.
And one of the things that before like social media was like really popular, where a lot of people were not as receptive to like random DMs and stuff like that, the best place to meet them was at networking events, right? And even still, like, I think the best part about like networking events and at my time here is like you might have a connection with someone online, but when you meet them in person is so much more impactful.
It builds it up.
You know what I mean? So when I came here, I remember David Blank was here and I was chatting with David Blank, and I've known actually his daughter was actually one of my first hires.
Really?
Yeah, which is a crazy small world.
Yeah, you never know who you're gonna meet in a meeting.
Yeah, you never know. And it was weird. I actually met her on Tinder at the time, and then we went on our first date. And basically, it was just mutual. Yeah, it was just mutual. We're like, hey, like we don't really see this kind of going anywhere, but I think you're a great person.
Right.
And then I offered her a job, and she said yes. So
cool, man.
And it just things just kind of fall in line, but when it comes back to like meeting people here, it's incredible. Like I came in at one of those meetings, I met a wholesaler that was newer and he's like, hey man, I have this deal. And I was like, perfect. You never know when you're JVing with a deal if it's going to sell or if it's not, unless you like look and you're like, yeah, this is kind of a no brainer of a deal. We could probably get more for it. And then you look at it, I looked at that deal. I thought it was an okay deal, but nothing like that was like screaming at me like, oh my God, this thing's going to sell. I sent it to a handful of my investors that I knew kind of like that area. One of them picked it up that same day and we're basically good. So it's just crazy. Like if I didn't show up that day, that deal doesn't happen. I don't meet that relationship. And it's like a lot of those relationships too. I was at a different networking event back when I was down in Tucson. We just did a deal with this guy. I've known this guy for probably 5 or 6 years and he's been on my list forever.
Yeah.
Hasn't bought anything, bought something last week.
Love it.
So you just never know when that relationship's going to come to fruition. It might be very fast, like in this case when I came to AZREIA, or it might be a slower process too. And I think that's the cool part about networking is that the more that you keep going out there, the better off your network's going to keep building up. And also too, it helps when you start showing up to these places a little bit more frequently, because then more people recognize you a little bit more. They get to
building a relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
They give you first shot or first look at a deal. They don't
100%.
have their contract yet. Like, just AZREIA.org /calendar.
Yeah.
Any networking. If it's a real estate, go out there, man.
But definitely ones that are focused on real estate investing, those are the best places to go, especially if you're looking to build a buyer's list. I mean, like think about it. Like there's endless amounts of buyers. You guys are buyers. So
you should always attend the monthly meeting because there's 150, 200 investors there all at one point. So it's definitely a benefit. I mean, for me, when I got started, I came to AZREIA. Got started, sat in the training. I met Mike not through AZREIA, but then started seeing him around, and then me and him connected. So it's always good to get out there and network. So that's the point that we want to drive home, is that you don't always have to have tens of thousands of dollars to do the marketing. You just show up and just be consistent at showing up, and something will happen for you.
Yeah, definitely. Or work for someone that has the money to go do it, and then just take those calls, learn on someone else's dime, which is super way to beat the curve.
So, speaking of tens of thousands of dollars, let's go into today.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of money on marketing now, which I love because it gives me the opportunity to spend what I'm really passionate about doing.
Okay.
So I've always been a marketing nerd. I'm like the computer guy. That's my thing. Even though as much as I love talking to people, there's just something else about being able to like use a computer to like get some leverage. So one of the things that we're doing now is a lot of PPC ads. So that's been a really great target for us to get motivated sellers in the door. Does it cost a lot of money? Yes. We were just talking a little bit before this. I mean, this week already we spent $3,000. So it's like for most people, that's kind of outside of their wheelhouse and their budget to spend that on a weekly basis. Right. If you would have told me that when I got started, I'd be like, dude, no. Like, no way. So, but now as you kind of keep building that deal flow, what's cool is like you can kind of use these pieces of your business to help deploy other pieces. So for an example, I use the B2B relationships, the co-wholesaling, the JVing, that type of stuff, and then the agents to then fund the direct to seller stuff, right? Instead of me funding my own pockets, I kept putting aside marketing budgets, right? So that way I can go deploy another one. So now let's say this goes away because some restriction happens with text messaging or email marketing or cold calling, or maybe title companies aren't doing co-assignments anymore. Yeah. Like I have to figure out what to do, which is a possibility, right? I don't get to control the law as much as I'd love to. I don't get to. So I have to figure out other ways and other strategies to always keep this business alive. So that's kind of one of the things that I always use. And I tell people, like, you don't have to go straight here. You can use these two to get some cash to then start funding the third thing, right? No different than if you're wholesaling, you want to fix and flip, wholesale enough houses, build up that cash, use it to flip a house then, like, which is what I did too. Awesome. So and then same thing with rentals. You want to eventually build rentals. Well, you do a couple more flips or you wholesale some more houses. You can go buy another rental because you have all this extra active income that's coming in. So I think a lot of people try to just go out the gates and just spend a bunch of money right out the get-go. And I think that's a really bad idea, especially if you don't know what you're doing on the sales floor, which I didn't, right? But most people don't, right? You don't know the techniques, the strategies of what a seller is going to say, how to handle those rebuttals. All those things are really important. So yes, we focus on Google ads. Facebook is good, but you kind of get some mediocre quality that comes out of there. Older people that just like, I clicked a button. What do you mean? How do you have my address? And you're like, well, you filled out the form. You said you want to sell it ASAP. You own the house. Like I don't know if Facebook's just lying to me or what's going on. We started doing TikTok, which was kind of an interesting demographic too. Kind of going back to that joint venture type of stuff, using TikTok organically to reach people. But we're like, hey, I mean, if it worked for that, couldn't it work for sellers? So there's obviously a whole marketplace out there. We kind of thought about it very similar to like television. It's the modern television, right? You see Doug Hopkins and Andrew the Homebuyer, some of the local guys here that spend a lot of money on local ads to get on Fox and ABC and all these other different places. And I was like, well, this is the phone. Phone goes everywhere with these people. And yeah, you might be older, but I know a lot of older people that are on TikTok, and even the demographics would show the same. So, and it's also cool because if you think about your average person that's usually owning a house, at least in the markets that we work, 30 plus, you know what I mean? So you're not seeing a whole lot of 20-year-olds doing it. So do we get some people that view those videos that probably don't own houses, of course, but no different than a kid watching a TV commercial. Like, it's no different than that. So,
So what have you seen in the market shift since you've been doing this? Because you got started in what year?
Yeah, so right around like 2016, 2017 was right around like that start time.
Right, so you're not a rookie, you're not a novice, so you didn't see the market shift and everything like that. What are you seeing different now than it was, let's just say maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago?
I was going to say a year and a half ago was a completely different market. So at least here, like locally in Phoenix, we saw obviously a massive change in what buyers were willing to pay for stuff. The prices didn't necessarily go down a dramatic amount, but the pickiness was. I mean, for an example, like we flipped houses that were 3-1s. We've put them on the market. They'd be sold in like a day. And then the market started changing. Well, guess what? That 3-1 house is not as desirable because there's a whole lot more out there for them to start looking at. So when we saw that huge intake in inventory where it like quadrupled basically or even 5x, we started seeing a whole lot of issues with trying to even sell deals to deals that we had flipping actively and stuff like that. One of the things that we're kind of seeing right now in the market is really talking to our buyers. I think that's one of the most important things, is because if you're not talking to the investors that are actually funding your deal as a wholesaler, understanding what they're looking for, how to structure these deals for them, because at the end of the day, I always think about this, like I'm not in business without my buyers. I could find amazing deals left and right on the acquisition side, but if I'm not having anyone to sell them to, I'm out of business. And it's just as simple as that. So you could be the biggest wholesaler in the world, but if you don't have buyers that are willing to buy your properties, it means absolutely nothing. Or other partners who even sell the deals. You know what I mean? So what we're seeing right now is really talking to them. In the Phoenix market, we're seeing stuff still trade from like 80 cents on the dollar to 85 cents in nicer areas, some lower areas,
so 75. Let's talk about that. So trading 85. So that's where you're locking it up, or it's sales price to the cash buyer?
To the cash buyer
at 80 to 85
minus repairs.
Got
is what we're still seeing in like good parts of like Scottsdale, Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, like better pocket scenarios. And then we're seeing some stuff in maybe like those C, B class neighborhoods, maybe even D at 70 to 75%, maybe 77 if it's a little bit nicer or newer. Just kind of depends, and also just depends on obviously how much work it needs too. You know, because I'm seeing a lot of people right now, especially from the PPC that we're having, a lot of people filling out that bought stuff in 2020, 2021, 2022, even 2023 that are filling out the form and going, I want to sell ASAP. Can you give me a cash offer? And they don't have a lot of equity. And we were just talking a little bit about, creative finance and how to navigate that. So we do work a couple of those. It's not our main exit strategy by any means. We're not every seller. We're not trying to convert them into one of those. We've looked into novations a little bit. Can't say I've successfully done one of those yet, but trying to figure out different ways. Yeah, 100%. The tool and the tool belt.
You get all these tools get glorified, right? Like we know them all, we do them all, and you diagnose the seller's problem, you bring the tool to the table, and you do the deal.
Yeah, and if it works, great for them, and if it doesn't, no worries, no hard feelings.
All great,
you know?
and you need to know them all. So going back, because a lot of people traditionally, when you start learning wholesaling, they're like 70% rule, all that stuff.
Yeah,
so obviously
100%. That was the same way.
In Cleveland or Midwest, you could probably roll with that.
It's gonna be
obviously,
a lot different
it's
here.
not happening here.
Yeah.
So when you said, depending on the neighborhood, it's 80 to 85, 75 in CD, right, roughly.
Yeah.
Then you said minus repairs. So what per square, are you, as a wholesaler,
Yeah.
right? We got to give a general concept.
No,
like,
100%.
we don't know exactly the repairs, but how are you evaluating the deals and putting in a repair estimate?
Yeah, we usually do it off of like square footage. So like I have like light square footage, maybe I'm at like 20, $25 a square foot. If it's a heavier renovation, maybe like 35, $45 a square foot. If I'm going luxury, maybe 75 to $100 a square foot. It just kind of depends. So I kind of look at those. Like we have a deal that's closing today that's like 85254. So northern Scottsdale area.
Zip code
Yeah. So that deal we're selling
a flipper looking
yeah.
right now too. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah,
I'll
definitely make sure to let you. So we sold at 87 cents on the dollar minus repairs. The repairs on it maybe about 45. It's pretty clean. Do an interior, you're ready to roll. So, and it's a small house too. I think it's only like 1,400 square feet, 1,500 square feet, you know, so it's not you'll be in and out within probably about a 30, 45 day window if you know how to run a construction crew. Yeah.
So what's the best way you're building your buyers list right now?
Yeah. So I've built a buyers list organically for a really long time, just networking, going to places like AZREIA, Facebook groups, Instagram, LinkedIn. I've skip traced a lot of people, finding, this investor bought this, try to find them on open corporations, and then go through the whole rabbit hole. Just this last week, we actually just got Investor Lift, and we just started testing that out. We sold 2 deals within 48 hours of being on the platform.
What's that cost?
So we bought the Lieutenant mode, which is $36,000 a year.
Nice.
But at the moment, I mean, we've already paid back like 45% of it already within the first week or so.
For you.
So that's one of the things that we're kind of pairing with the organic side, because it is always good to find new buyers and pair them up on that side. So that was a unique thing that we're just starting right now that has been actually working pretty well, especially in some of these markets that you get some kind of random places. We're seeing that helping us a lot, because we have a lot of people, like let's say in Phoenix, right, that are on my buyers list that would be on there. But let's say I go out to like Eloy or Winslow or some places that are maybe a little bit less, like even Flagstaff, for an example. Like I don't have a big list out in Flagstaff by any means, or Sedona. So we're finding those locations we can kind of tap into a little bit more. And also for us, like we're scaling out a lot in Florida. So we're getting places like Jacksonville, Miami, Orlando, Kissimmee, like different places that we really haven't been able to build it organically yet. So it's kind of giving us a little bit of a cheat code to kind of just go a little bit faster. So
awesome.
Perfect.
So are you noticing like corporate buyers, hedge funds?
Yeah.
Are you seeing
So
that?
we're seeing a little bit. I actually went out to a lunch 2 weeks ago with a bunch of hedge funds that kind of I got introduced through like a title rep. And they're not really buying a whole lot still. We've seen some of them kind of come back in the market, like Open Door and OfferPad, at least locally here, have been starting to ramp back up. But as far as like the institutions like Invitation Homes or like those types of like Progress, or what's some of the other ones, there's a ton of them, Amherst, all those types of big ass companies. Like we're not seeing them come back very strong. So I kind of have a little bit of an advantage too. My brother works with all these hedge funds. So he sells appliances to them. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So he kind of knows when they're buying and when they're not buying because of orders. So I kind of always ask him how the flow is going. And he's like, they've been really slow.
It's like
they're
the
not
U-Haul
ordering.
list.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Similar.
Good.
Yeah.
I love those little tips, man.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff you get in networking and meeting people
Yeah.
or listening to these. Yeah, man. That's awesome.
So
I'm keeping in touch with you on
yeah. Yeah. If you need good
like
appliances, I mean, he could get them for pretty cheap and flooring and all this other stuff. So they work with hedge funds nationwide. So they're doing it all over the place. So I always kind of ask him just how order volume's going, things like that, to kind of understand like where the market's going. And we knew that things were slowing down before they started slowing down too. I didn't use that data correctly because I still lost a lot of money on stupid stuff, but live and you learn. I could have probably saw that and been like, oh, that smart money probably knows what's going on. So I've heard talks that they're coming back. I don't really know. I know BlackRock came out with a report that said they have $40 billion in dry powder that they wanted to start deploying, and they think the market has hit the bottom. We'll see. I mean, I know I also talked with the guy that was the main acquisition guy at Progress for about 7 years, this like 2 weeks ago. And he's like, we thought multiple times the market was at the bottom or was at the top, and we were wrong.
Yeah.
And we laid off a lot of people for no reason. Like COVID was one of those examples. Yeah. He's like, we had $1 million in escrow with all these properties we were buying. We canceled on every single one of them.
Yep.
Because we saw the portfolio was at like 30-40% of getting affected by not paying rent. Wow. And they thought the market was going to just drop. And they wanted to protect themselves from new acquisitions, new properties that they were taking on. So losing $1 million to them was probably like losing $1 for me. Right. So it's like, oh, whatever. It sucks. And then the hard part is then they were wrong.
Right.
So it's like you saw the opportunity, what they probably could have made on all of those deals, all the equity that they could have had, the rent growth, all that stuff. So it's definitely
can't time the market, right? No matter what market it is, you can't time it. So let me ask you, Kyle, how do we get in touch with you? How do we reach you? If somebody wants some more information about what you're doing, or they want to be on your buyer's list, how do we find you?
Yeah, so if you want to be on the buyer's list, you can just go to hoffergroup.com. You can fill out Hoffer, Hoffer, and then group. So you just go on there, you just fill out your information, name, phone number, cities that you're looking for, because we're only in a handful of markets. So if you're buying in some places, we might not have any deals for you to buy. If you're looking to sell a property, you can reach us at basilholdings.com, just spelt like the plant, Basil holdings, plural.com. And then if you guys want to get connected with me, probably the most active spot I'm in right now is Instagram. Because TikTok's a little bit weird. You can't like DM someone on TikTok unless they like follow you back, which is so stupid in my opinion. So if you guys want to like message me, I answer my messages pretty frequently on there. Always like getting connected with people. I post videos just about what we're up to, different tips and tricks, kind of still good, doing the same thing that I was doing back in COVID, trying to organically reach people, help them out that way. Yeah. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for being here, man. Appreciate
of course. Thank you guys for having us.
All right. So you guys know what to do. Get out there and take massive action. Here at AZREIA, we like to empower each investor one property at a time. So you can go and reach out to Kyle and get that first property and get you a deal done. So thank you so much for being loyal listeners. Like always, make sure you join us. You can go to azreia.org/calendar for all your information of the events that we have coming up. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Love it, man. Love it.
Perfect.
Thanks for listening to the AZREIA Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Del Prete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to AZREIA.org and learn more about our community.